Not Kyle. This is your eyes are not deceiving you. That is Evan. Evan. So we'll just wait here. People are coming in. As you're coming into the room, the meeting here, um, we're going to be talking about strength training and gaining muscle and all that really fun stuff, right, Evan? That's the fun stuff. That's the real
Oh
fun
yeah.
stuff.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
And so just in the chat for a little icebreaker, why don't you post your favorite strength training exercise? I'm going to put mine in. And you can all share what you like to do. Mine's the bicep curl,
Ooh. I'm gonna go with the bench press.
bench press. Straight bar,
Straight bar, flat, low incline is fun too. But
gotcha.
can't take the football player out of me. I love a bench press.
There you go. Incline dumbbell bench.
Incline
That's a
dumbbell.
close second for me too, Gage. And we got the assisted pull up, abductor band, always good.
RDLs, I love those.
RDLs, yeah.
Leg press, lat pull down.
Seated row. Oh, good clarification there,
See, yeah.
Carolyn. I was so confused.
Sumo squats, that's a good specific one. I like that.
Gets the glutes a little more.
More glutes,
You
yep.
feel it in the glutes a little more.
Yep.
Great. Okay, well, we are at 2:16 here, Central Time. So we're just going to get right into some of the stuff that we have prepared for you all. Like I said, we're going to talk about strength training and kind of the difference between maybe traditional strength training and hypertrophy. So when we say hypertrophy, we're talking about kind of building muscle, adding muscle mass to that. And like I said, I do not have Kyle here. I'm Isaac. We have Kyle here, not Kyle. We have Evan. So, Evan, if you want to just quicker introduce yourself and we can get into it.
Yeah. So I'm Evan. I know my name says Kyle, but I'm Evan. I'm Kyle's intern. I'm the health source intern over at OHQ, hanging out in the Wellness Center. We've been here for the summer. And yeah, I'm just excited to get to chat about lifting weights today.
Um, yeah, and I would say both you and I, we have that passion for just talking to you. You know, the times we both have a big passion for strength training and all that. And you're, intern, you're in school right now. So your
Hmm.
perspective, I feel like you have that fresh, you know, you got all the research in your brain of like things you're learning in class and everything. So what do you think? What's the difference between strength and hypertrophy training? Is there much of a difference, Evan?
That's the $1 million question, huh? Um, you know, at its base, not much of a difference. Like at the very root core of it, when it comes to either building strength or building muscle, it's all going to come back to just lifting weights in some form, right? Um, Now, in terms of the specific nuances, for getting stronger, gaining strength, you're going to want to be training in a way that allows you to train with the heaviest loads possible, right? You're doing low repetitions, 3 to 5, 3 to 6 with 70-80% of your max on the bar. You're getting a lot of repetitions in. It's a lot of practice. That's what a lot of people don't realize is gaining strength, especially in those bigger like compound movements, your squat, your deadlift, is sometimes more about technique or coordination than it is about raw muscular output. Um, so a lot of it is just that practice, getting the form down and using the heavier loads. On the flip side of that, hypertrophy is it doesn't matter how much weight you're using, right? All that we care about is stimulating growth. Now, the best way, or at least in my opinion and a lot of scientists' opinion, the best way to do that is by consistently working harder than you did last time, right? If you're training chest and you're doing incline dumbbell press, if last week you used the 60s, for 3 sets, then maybe this week you use the 65s, or you use the 60s, but you do an extra set or a couple extra reps. So it does come back to the weight progression. Both you're going to want to keep progressing weight, but maybe some of the very nuanced things like rep schemes or what movements you're doing might change a little bit there.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I think, yeah, you kind of like hit it on the head with as far as that progressive. And we in the trade, we call it progressive overload, right? So
Mhm.
it's and as long as your strength routine, or if you're whether you're trying to gain just raw strength, whether you're trying to gain muscle mass, it's all founded, it's all the foundation is that progressive overload, like slowly but surely lifting more weight, um, and over time, right? Think of it as a full a life journey in a way of
Mhm.
that, and that's kind of that. It's all found the foundation of that, and the progressive overload principle. I mean, that's something that you could probably speak to this too. It's just like it is. That is the most researched. Like we know that to be pretty much fact at this point. Like
Mhm.
lift, and by progressive, I mean like you lift weights to that point of not necessarily complete fatigue, but like till you're tired. And then the next time, lifting your weights till you're tired, and hopefully you've made tiny increases in either the weight that you're using or the repetitions performed.
Yep.
Yeah. And I like what you said too, is like that strength training aspect. If you're kind of going for just that, yeah, you're just trying to move more weight, it is really like a skill. Not so much just moving weight. Like you are practicing, it's that, you throw a baseball, you practice shooting hoops, time after time, and you get better at it, right? It's that skill that you're constantly working on. Kind of that same thing you can apply to strength training as well. And
100%.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
And just sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say to also to your point of what you said of like those rep ranges you kind of listed off. I I heard something the other day and kind of looked into it more of what is that repetition range if you're trying to um, gain muscle, right? So if someone's like, I really want to, put on some muscle. Your range is 5 reps to 30 repetitions per set. So chances are you're in that rep range, and you don't need to think too much of like, am I doing the correct thing? Just lift to that point of, you know, you're tired, and then progressing from there. So what were
Yep.
you going to say though? Yeah.
Yeah. Just on the progressive overload thing, that can be a lot of different things as well. It can be progressing on actual pure, like how much your weight you're lifting, reps. It could also be something like improving your form, standardizing your form better. Because if you, let's say you're doing a bench press and you bump up the weight, but in order to lift that weight, you have to change the form up. You have to have a crazy arch in your back and limit the range of motion. You're not really progressing on the same movement because you've changed it, right?
Mhm.
So there's a lot of different ways that progressive overload can sort of manifest. Um, but it is at the end of the day, the end all be all. Because like you just said, that rep range, people say, different sources will say 8 to 12, right, will be the best for muscle hypertrophy, or anything above that is for toning, right? Toning the muscle, 15 to 20 reps or whatever.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, it all comes down to, I mean, are you doing more than you did last week, right? And are you consistently doing that over a period of time? There's no specific magic number where if you hit 12 reps, that's what really causes muscle growth, right?
Yeah.
That's not how that goes. All that matters, and what really matters is those last 4 or 5 reps, right? Before you approach
Mhm.
failure. That's another big thing that I love to touch on is, let's say you do a set of 12. The most effective reps in that set are, as far as I'm up to date on the science, the most effective reps in that set are the last 5, right? Because those are in that uncomfortable, challenging area, right? That's
Yeah.
where you're really like you're struggling, you're making ugly faces and breathing real heavy to get those reps out. That's where you're gonna grow, right? If you did, I when I was a personal trainer, I would talk to people and they would say, "Oh, we're doing, let's say we're doing leg extensions," and they say, "Oh, on this machine, I usually do this weight." And I'd say, well, that's not what our goal is, right? We don't want to have a usual weight. We want to have a new weight every time. Or if we're doing the same weight, we want to do more reps with it so that we can move up in weight, right? Um, Not getting stagnant is just the biggest thing, in my opinion. Just keep pushing harder than you did last week. It doesn't matter if you have a amazing, perfectly executed, perfectly science-based workout routine. If the effort isn't there, the results won't come. That's just
Mhm.
at the end of the day, that's how it goes. So yeah.
Absolutely. I like that. If the effort isn't there, the results will not come. It's
Oh,
good. It just puts it more on that individual, like each set, each repetition
yep.
going into that. Um, so I guess, you mentioned consistency, like being consistent, doing this every week. What are some ways that you have found to kill, like, what are some ways that have kept you consistent, like coming back? Is it kind of, do you like have a preference for like rep ranges, sets? What kind of keeps you coming back?
Yeah.
Uh,
Um, Again, probably the biggest factor, right? The person who's going to make the most progress is the person who's been doing it forever, right? And just is relentlessly consistent. Um, my personal take on it, do something one that you can enjoy, right? If you hate going to the gym, you're going to find any possible reason not to, right? I hate my workout routine. I don't have any fun doing it. It's boring. I got to let the dogs out. I can't make it to the gym. Like if you don't enjoy it, you won't go. Two,
yeah.
you need something that you can recover from as well, right? Because if you go hit a crazy leg day, you're doing squats, RDLs, split squats, leg press, leg extension, all the exercises in one thing,
I feel
five
like I
sets,
broke my legs. Yeah.
you're going to be so sore that by the time the next leg day rolls around, you're still sore, you're not recovered, you're not going to want to go to the gym. And even if you did, it wouldn't be as quality of a session as it could be, right? So find that healthy balance. Some people, they can recover from high volume training. Some people really like low volume stuff. Myself, there's a lot of times I'll hop on a movement. I'll do 2 exercises or 2 sets of that exercise and move on. That's it. Because I know that in 2 days or 3 days from then, I won't be sore anymore. I'll be ready to go on that same workout again. Right.
Right. Mhm.
Frequency is another big part of it. Weekly volume is great. Let's say I do 20 sets in one day of legs, right? Halfway through that, I'm going to be pretty gassed. I'm going to be pretty exhausted, and I'm going to need a full week to
Mhm.
get ready for that leg day again. But if I do 10 sets one day, 10 sets a few days later, after I've given myself some time to recover, I've had 2 effective leg days and I'm recovered for each of them,
Mhm.
right?
And you're able to push yourself in those 10 reps, right?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Staying fresh.
Because staying fresh, you're not burning yourself out because doing too much is a great way to burn yourself out. There's people that are in there and they try to train like the world's strongest man or a Mr. Olympia competitor, and they've never touched a weight in their life. You gotta do what's reasonable for you and what challenges you. You could do Arnold Schwarzenegger's chest workout, but I guarantee you it won't work for you like it worked for him because you're not him. You know, you have your own body, you have your own set of rules, your own set of circumstances that's going to either limit or, change what you need based on your anatomy, your physiology, and your training age. You know, you can't just go say, hey, ChatGPT, Google, what's the best workout? Because there is no best workout, right? There's stuff that I do and I think, I enjoy. Myself, it's sort of a push pull legs type of split, meaning like, push is chest, shoulders, and triceps. Push would be back and biceps, and legs is legs, right? And I repeat that over and over. Push pull legs. I usually take a rest day, then I go right back into it. Push pull legs. Um, Usually, sets wise, 2 to 3 sets, man, per exercise is where I like, and 6 to 8 reps. I like to lift heavier. I know some people, joints are a thing and pain is a thing. Sometimes you got to go a little lighter, do some higher reps. That works too. Myself, I like some heavier weight, so I like to go smaller amount of reps, smaller amount of sets, and really just give it my all on a few. Um, but kind of my whole point with this overarching rant is you got to do what works for yourself, because
Yep.
what works for me isn't necessarily going to work for somebody else.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you had a lot of good stuff in there. Are you sure you don't want to stay a little bit longer for your internship, Evan? We can do more of these.
I'd love
Um,
to, but senior
yeah.
year calls.
Yes. Yes, it does. Um, I guess I'm looking into the chat. Kelly, were there any questions that you think might be good to answer?
Yeah, we've got a couple questions here.
Yeah, kind of talking about the cardio and how that
Hmm.
effects can help or inhibit muscle growth. That would be swimming as well as cardio, running, biking.
All right. What do you
Yeah.
think, Evan?
Fantastic question. Cardio is important for sure, right? We need a healthy heart, you know? It really depends again, and kind of the answer that might drive the listeners insane is it depends on you, right? Um, Too much cardio for sure can inhibit your ability to resistance train at a full capacity, right? If I run 3 days a week, right, my legs are going to be pretty gassed. That's sort of that intramuscular glycogen in the legs, which is the stored carbs that your muscles use for energy during exercise, is going to be pretty depleted, right? So then if I go to try to hit a crazy leg day after running 3 times, it's going to be pretty tough to push my legs to the full capacity that I could, right? So you can kind of think of it both ways. You can think of it over the course of a week, which is usually how we divide training sequences, right? And within the day. So we'll start with the easier one. When it comes to if you're lifting and doing cardio at the same time, or in the same session rather, I would always do cardio post lifting just because cardio doesn't require much neuromuscular output. You're kind of just walking or running or biking or whatever. Lifting requires a lot of neuromuscular output, right? So if you kind of tire yourself out doing cardio and then you go to try to lift, you won't be as efficient as you could if you swapped those. So I'm always a fan of do your lift first, then do your cardio. Um, there's also a lot of, running can be really impactful on the legs and the joints. So there's that you have to consider your joint fatigue, right? Pain that you might be dealing with if you're running and trying to lift. Something like swimming, walking on a treadmill, biking, all those are nice, low impact, good ways to get your heart rate up. So I like those. The running specifically, um, can inhibit it if you're doing too much. But again, I'm going to fall back on my it depends on the person sort of thing.
For sure. Sure. I like what you said too, if you if you like running, like if you like more cardio, you know, continue with the cardio. Maybe throw in a few like strength exercises to um, help keep your cardio gains, because you can apply a lot of that like cardiovascular output into progressive overload as well, just like making slow increases in your workout and effort. um, so yeah, we're
100%.
we're yeah we are after obviously 2:30 here, but if there's a few more questions, like, do you have anything going on right now, Evan?
I got time.
Yeah, you got time? So um let's see here. Hmm. Stretching.
Yeah.
Stretching. See that help you recover better or faster? Um, what do you think of that?
Yeah,
This
stretching.
is as a recovery. Yeah.
Stretching is something that I myself should and definitely could do more of and do a better job at. Stretching is something that I would recommend after lifting again. If lifting is your sort of focus, something that you want to improve at, there's actually some research to show that if you stretch before, sort of those static stretches, yoga style stretches, it loosens up your muscles, which actually reduces your ability to contract your muscles as strongly as you could. So I would advise against stretching before you lift, like right before. Afterwards, though, I think it's a great way to recover for sure because, like I just said, you're contracting your muscles, you're getting really strong muscle contractions, and that's going to tighten up your muscles afterwards. You're going to get stiff and get a little bit sore, right? That soreness comes from lactic acid, lactate sort of just building up in those tissues. And stretching is a great way to reduce the stiffness and reduce the soreness by getting that lactic acid moving again. I know myself, like when I played high school football, you play Friday night, Saturday morning, we were doing like a full mobility workout because all that activity you're doing the night before builds up all that lactic acid and moving your body, getting yourself active recovery, right? To use that buzzword,
Yeah.
is what's going to move around that lactic acid. So stretching afterwards definitely can help you recover faster. As for what is a good stretching resource, you don't got to do a 30-minute stretching thing, in my opinion. It's great. I mean, a yoga class here at the Wellness Center is a great opportunity to build your flexibility. But in terms of just recovery, 5 to 10 minutes of some basic, body, full body stretch, things that stretch out each major muscle group are probably going to be sufficient. Obviously, you can build on that, but that's the basics, what I recommend, honestly.
Yeah. I would agree with, yeah, everything you said, as far, especially, I would say, if you're stretching beforehand, you want to make it more of a dynamic stretch, right? So it's
Yep.
more of like a muscle activating exercise or stretch. And then, like you said, like the static stretching, those stretches where you want to hold for at least 30 seconds, that would be done post workout for sure. Because
Yep.
otherwise, you're going to inhibit your potential output. Good question here by Sarah, the very most recent one here. It said, any info on creating the right diet to best build muscle? Um, I'll just answer quick with as far as like, being mindful of how much protein you're consuming, right? There's that daily recommended amount of, if you're trying to specifically build muscle. I've heard zero point 0.7 to zero point 0.8. That's the National Academy of Sports Medicine recommendation of 0.7 to zero point 0.8 grams per pound body weight of that. So um, if you're good at it, that's kind of that general recommendation with that. And then also as far as like, you know, eating carbohydrates is big with weight training, especially because you want to report, you mentioned earlier, Evan, that glycogen stored in your muscles of that potential energy, once you've done a big strength training workout, it's going to deplete your body of that glycogen, and you need to restore that if you want to actually build muscle.
Yep.
Anything you want to add to that too, Evan, as far as the right
Yeah.
diet? Yeah.
I mean, no notes on the protein. Yeah, like get your protein in. That's what, protein has those amino acids. The amino acids are what's going to build the muscle. But I appreciate the carb shout out because that's not something people talk about enough. If you want to resistance train, especially if you want to resistance train heavy, you need energy. You need carbs. That muscle glycogen is going to be depleted after every session. So everybody's worried about getting protein in right after. I would also advise get a big serving of carbs right after your training as well,
Yeah.
as well as before. Before training, 30 to 60 minutes, a serving of quick digesting, pretty clean carbs generally are what I recommend because it's going to give you an energy boost. It's going to help you put out as maximal force as possible. And then as we can relate that back, that maximal force is what's going to drive that progressive overload, right? It all comes back to that at the end of the day. So good shout out to carbs there.
Yeah. What would you say when you said kind of easily to digest carbohydrates, what would you recommend? Like, what's a good recommendation for you? Like a snack or,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. Simple stuff, something like some sort of rice or sometimes it could be even, some of the like I'll do a bowl of cereal sometimes before I train. If you want a specific thing, a lot of times before I train, I'll do some Rice Krispie cereal with a banana cut up in there. And then I'll mix a little bit of whey protein with water so that it gets a little bit of a not quite frosting, but sort of liquidy consistency. And I'll drizzle that over all that, maybe some honey, just literally just carbs, some sugars, and just a big old bowl of carbs. Because like I said earlier, I train heavy. I like to do big lifts, bench press, squat, deadlift, those kind of things. And I know that I'm going to need those carbs and I'm going to use them, you know? So that's kind of the stuff that I do. I know Rice Krispie treats are popular before, or something like a fruit snack or,
Yeah, I've
something
heard
kind of
that too.
tasty,
Yeah.
something kind of sugary. I know that a lot of people avoid like added sugars and all that. That's cool. You can go with like fruit, is a great one. A banana, an apple, something like that. Some strawberries, always great as well.
Yeah, that's great. And I would recommend eating some sort of carbohydrate, like you said, like post workout. I would stress that more post work. I would stress carbohydrates post workout more than I would stress protein post workout.
Yep.
Because
Yep.
the protein's kind of like you don't you're not going to lose muscle. Your muscle's not going to deteriorate if you don't have that, that uh, for a while the
Mhm.
industry was saying you got to have your protein shake 30 minutes post
30 minutes,
workout,
right?
otherwise you're not going to be able to build muscle. That's thankfully been proven wrong, but
Mhm.
you know I would say, but still the carbohydrate piece of that to help to help replenish the muscle glycogen, I would stress carbohydrates post workout more than protein. So
100%.
um, okay, so Patrick's good question here. How about dropping the weight to go for an additional set to increase the muscle burn? So how would
So
you go with that?
yeah, it something that can be done for sure. Um, After workout pizza. I like it, Jimmy.
Hey,
Um, uh,
that could work.
Dropping the weight to go for an additional set is what you would call like one of those intensifiers, right? Like I think of like a drop set, right? Where you literally just like let's say you're doing chest press and you do a certain amount of weight, and then right after you finish that set, you drop the weight and bust out a few more reps. or but taking your normal rest time and going back with a lighter weight to get some extra reps. Um, Definitely something that can help, right? It's adding to your volume, but it's not going to be as growth promoting as the sets where you're pushing new amounts of weight or newly challenging amounts of weight. Typically, the way I do it, and again, this is just me, is if I'm doing any given exercise, I'll find my working weight, right, which is usually hopefully a little bit heavier than whatever it was last time. I'll do that for a set amount, I'll set my reps, the first set, let's say I got 8 reps. Okay, sweet. I'll do another set, I get 8 reps again. Awesome. Third set, maybe I get 6, right? If that's how it goes, I'm probably done after that third set, right? That shows that I'm fatigued enough where I couldn't do the same amount of reps with the same weight that I could starting. So it's time to move on, because I don't want to add any what people would call like junk volume, right? Essentially volume where you're working, but you're not working at the capacity you could, right? So I would rather take that set and save it for another day when I'm fully recovered and I can make that set as effective as possible, right? So let's say I have 3 sets and I could do a fourth, but I know that that fourth set, I'm going to have to bump down the weight a good amount. It's just not going to be as tough as the other ones. I would personally, and again, just me, I'm taking that set and I'm delaying it to the next training session, right? Where I can use the maximum weight that I can and get the most out of it. But again, just me. That muscle burn that Patrick is talking about is sort of just that accumulation of lactic acid is what gives you that burning sensation in the muscles. Uh, for some people, they like it. Myself, it's not something that I chase. It's not necessarily something that I find is what I'm looking for when it comes to building muscle, but it's also not something I would say avoid. It's another one of those, if you like it, go for it. I don't think it's hurting you. But also maybe not exactly a cheat code, so to speak.
Sure. Like that. Well, we can probably wrap it up here. Evan, maybe we'll have you do like a guest appearance some other time here
That'd be
later
awesome.
this next school year. We can do a
Yeah,
round 2 of this.
yeah.
So I really wanted to keep you going with all those answers because you're very great at answering a lot of these. So
I can
thank you.
definitely ramble.
Yeah. Ramble. I want to call it rambling. So, well, thank you so much, everyone, for coming. We kind of went over a little bit. I think that was okay, though. We were answering some good questions out of the chat. We want to allow you the opportunity to have an answer for some of these questions. So, thank you so much. And thank you, not Kyle, Evan,
Not
for
Kyle.
uh, for coming here. So,
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me and letting me talk about one of my favorite things to do. This is just fun for me. So,
yeah, it's only fun. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see you, everyone.